So this year I attended Right of Boom, which is a conference that is focused on cybersecurity for IT outsourcing firms. And this year there were about 2,000 people in attendance, give or take. And while I was there, it was about a 2.5 day conference. I attended and spoke with a lot of different presenters on a lot of different topics where they're trying to build up cybersecurity in their industry for their clients, for the organizations they're working with. And I synthesized a lot of that into some key takeaways that I see as refinements for the way we do business and for the value we deliver to our clients. Everyone in the security industry is recognizing, they're looking around and saying, the landscape that we all conduct business in has changed. And that's not specific to cybersecurity providers. That is everyone who conducts business. Your business operates in an environment, and that environment includes your customers and your vendors. It includes your prospects. It includes everything you depend upon, all the services you interact with. But it also includes the threat actors. It includes the bad guys that are out there that are trying to profit by doing you harm. So one of the things that we're trying to help our clients understand is what you did to protect yourself yesterday or 2 days ago or last year or the year before is not the same thing that you have to be considering today because the risk landscape has changed. Think about if you open up a neighborhood business, just a retail store in a neighborhood, and maybe you opened it up 20 years ago. Fast forward to the present, and the neighborhood traffic patterns could have changed. Your customer profiles have changed. The products people buy, the way people buy, all of that's changed. You can't just keep doing what you were doing 20 years ago in a new environment for today. You have to adapt and evolve. Cybersecurity 5 years ago, 10 years ago, used to be about let's do antivirus, let's protect against malicious software being injected in the environment or accidentally being downloaded. And that's still important. That's still a key part of a layered security approach. What we're finding, and we're hearing this from the enterprise space, and it's coming into the mid-market space, and we're even seeing it in the small business space now, is what's called live off the land attacks. Live off the land techniques are not necessarily unique, but it just means that the threat actor is applying their expertise to use the tools that are already present in most business environments, the things that people need to use to get their work done or administer the environment or manage the environment. They're just using those tools in a nefarious way with their expertise to figure out how far they can go within an environment. A live off the land tactic or an attack is not a thing by itself. It's a step in a chain. And that chain can still start with a credential compromise or an exposed port on the internet or some other way that they've gotten onto one of your computers as one of your user accounts inside the network. And once they're there, the threat actor then leverages their expertise to say, what do I have available to me? And they frequently can then use the tools that are already present to start exploring the environment or establish persistence or work on data exfiltration and possibly use that as a precursor to a larger attack where they're going to compromise confidentiality, integrity, or availability of something you care about. So we defend against live off the land techniques using layered security. And one of those layers that we frequently put in place is MDR, managed detection and response. The MDR tool set that we're running, the modern one, is able to identify not just that a tool was run, but what's trying to happen with that tool and who's trying to do it, and what's the pattern of behavior around it, such that if it's unusual, it's able to identify that as an indicator, a suspicious indicator, which leads to a security team investigation, which might lead directly to it being shut down. Let's just stop that activity. Let's stop further damage. But then let's also put the pieces together to say, how did that tool get run? Who ran it? Where did they originally come from? And what were they trying to accomplish? Three things that came out of the conference towards evolving security best practices. One of them is the growing compliance requirements. And we're seeing this whether it's a company that's doing business with the federal government or doing business with healthcare or doing business with particular states, or even just trying to get cybersecurity insurance. There are evolving compliance requirements such that businesses are being held to higher and higher standards to be good stewards of their cybersecurity, have strong cybersecurity in place, and be ready to respond if they had a cybersecurity event to minimize the risk to whomever else they're doing business with. The concept of software bill of materials is an important thing towards also defending against what are known as supply chain attacks or supply side attacks for software vendors. There have been several documented cases recently where threat actors have gone after a particular company or a group of companies or an industry by identifying the line of business applications or even the productivity applications that they use. And rather than attack the business directly, and rather than attack that application directly, they'll look at the application and say, oh, the software vendor wrote that application using software from 5 other vendors. And then they'll look at those 5 vendors and say, wait, we can attack that vendor who appears to be fairly weak, and we can inject our code into that vendor. That vendor's code gets incorporated into the application. That application gets sold to the business installs it. And now we've got a way in to these downstream businesses that don't even realize that they're running the software from the vendor that we attacked. That's a common path for threat actors on a very targeted, large scale endeavor. And it's very difficult to defend against. That's what software bill of materials is trying to bring to light. So there's visibility across all of the libraries and all of the software that you're running to match up against what evolving threats look like. Another key concept that came out of the conference was the idea of shifting up in maturity as each business selects the tools that it uses for security. And we have to take a layered approach because there's no one thing that solves everything. Originally, the conversation was about finding the best tool for the job, but there might be 5, 10, 20 tools required in a layered security approach. Today, the conversation is really about finding the right suites of tools that work together, that can give you a single pane of glass or a single policy management tool set to handle as many aspects of your security in one place in a consistent, cohesive way as possible. So we're seeing vendors moving away from, let me build one more tool that's going to go live by itself that has to be managed separately, to let's build tools that can then talk to other tools that are in a similar family or designed for interoperability. And the result is you end up with higher security overall. Businesses have to figure out where they prioritize their spend to manage risk versus the costs versus all the things that they want to accomplish. This cybersecurity strategy model is something that I drafted up while I was at the conference. And I took a number of different pieces and tried to put them into one view. Overall, we've all got this concept of where do we want to be, this target state. And when you build a security target state for a business, you have to consider the things that are unique to the business operations, and then you have to consider the environment that the business is operating within. If you take then the target state of where you want to be and compare it versus the present state of where you are, the difference between the two gives you a list of things that you can make for improvements in the environment. You can then prioritize that list and say, let's implement this, let's implement this, let's implement this. And whether it's a routine implementation that has low risk and low cost, or it's a significant implementation that might have some cost and some risk that has to be managed all the way through, those improvements then feed back into your present state. When they feed back into your present state, you can then reevaluate your gaps. And as a business, you can continue to manage closer and closer to what your ideal security target state looks like. Cybersecurity is a culture that we try to drive each one of our clients to adopt and refine whatever's most appropriate to them and to their businesses. Part of keeping current with cybersecurity trends for our clients is us attending and participating in these types of conferences. This is part of what our clients subscribe to when they're engaged with Aldridge. There's a lot of knowledge sharing from a lot of different industry experts, a lot of different peers. There's government entities that are coming in and saying, here's what we're seeing on the international landscape. There are enterprise entities that are saying, here are the early indicators of what we're seeing threat actors starting to do at the enterprise space. We know it's going to start moving down to the business space. And we can talk to some of our peers saying, we're having success with this. We're not having as much success with this. How can we protect against this? How can we help educate people to really leverage the business level conversation for their own business to manage their risk?